Initiative. Today, we will begin session 8, Valuation of Water in the Region, Progress and Challenges. We will talk about the progress of the water valuation process in the region and we will share successful projects and the complexities of water governance and the implications of climate change to promote sustainable water use. First of all, Fabiola Tabora from the Global Water Initiative, but was going to moderate, but we wish her a quick recovery. This session is co-organized by the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Dotares, and the Global Water Partnership. Thank you for welcoming us here at ECLAC and ICA, and we are very happy to be able to share the progress made with water valuation. I would like to offer the floor to the ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Central America, Christine Pirin, for the opening remarks. Good morning, everyone here present. It is an honor to be here with you in this session on valuation of water as part of the regional water dialogues in Latin America and the Caribbean. In this session, we will talk about valuation. This started during the historical UN Conference on Water in March 2023, with the adoption of the water valuation principles by the High-Level Panel on Water organized by the United Nations and the World Bank. Our Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, signed, together with other leaders of different countries like Peru and Mexico. Today, we are implementing the Regional Water Action Agenda adopted in the Regional Water Dialogues in 2023 held in Santiago de Chile, around 1 year ago. In those regional dialogues, we have highlighted the importance of recognizing the different water values and find ways to reconcile these. We have heard about the value of water for agriculture and livestock production, health, and ecosystems. The Water Valuation Initiative calls to give priority to water in decision-making efforts, that we put the water matter in the center of our discussions on our political agendas and economic and financial agendas. To value water consists of explicitly being clear regarding the social, economic, and environmental value of water for sustainable development. This is about facilitating dialogue and understand and fully value and better manage water. It is a compensation in vested interests on the availability of reliable data and on the willingness to better manage water. This is about being very clear in the sense that we need to drastically increase our water investments in water. During this session, we will talk about values. It is not easy to talk about value. This is not something that we are used to do day by day. We seek to have a perspective that goes all the way from the personal level, our own values, all the way to the systematic part and expand the voices that are included in decision-making processes, the voices of diversity, the voices of women, of youth, of indigenous nations, voices that are so often excluded. We will continue to learn and share our experiences. We will reinforce our collaboration with governments, institutes, and with the private sector. And we will intensify our efforts to, as I said, include the values of women, youth, local communities in the decision-making processes related to water. Before we open officially this session, I would like to express my appreciation to all our special guests. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Cristian Alfredo Barrantes Bravo, Vice Minister of Agriculture of Peru, and our partners and organizers for their contributions. Thank you very much, ICAI, and all people present here. I hope that the knowledge and experiences shared today may inspire you to join us in this process towards a better understanding, valuation, and management of water. A process definitely towards better decisions having an impact on water. I wish you all a very inspiring and fruitful session. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your kind opening remarks. We would like to invite our keynote speaker, Cristian Alfredo Barrantes Bravo, Vice Minister of Agriculture of Peru, to come forward. Madam Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, officers, representatives of ICA, ECLAC, officers from different countries, allow me to first of all thank ECLAC for the invitation to attend this event, as well as the facilities granted by the Netherlands to be here with you, and the welcome given to us by ICA. On behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture, Development and Irrigation, and on my own behalf, I would like to thank you, and I confirm that water management for my country and the entire world is a very important element, particularly in the context of climate change, where extreme rainfall events and flooding events configured with times of water deficit in some regions of our country and of the world have shown us the need to generate adequate water resource management as a relevant strategic point for our countries. In my country, the Peruvian government and the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation that I am honored to represent today is making tremendous efforts and investing great resources to address the greater demands for water, particularly for irrigation purposes. Given the magnitude of this demand, it is necessary to bring together different contributions and efforts at an intergovernmental level, public, private, and multi-sectorial. That is why the subject matter of this session is so important for all of us participating herein. The initiative for water valuation, which as a country we will present, is driven by the Kingdom of the Netherlands following the recommendation of the UN High-Level Committee on Water. The Peruvian government has been involved right from the onset in this initiative, participating in this high-level group together with the Netherlands and 9 other countries. The participation of Peru really began in 2019 with the signing of a first MOU between the national water authorities and the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Kingdom of the Netherlands. However, due to different problems resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to hold a second MOU, which was finally signed in April 2022. Within the framework of the MOU, there has been a project that aims to the practical implementation of the principles of the Water Valuation Initiative in the context of a basin, which for the country is very important, the Chancay-Bambayé Basin. There are 159 basins, and in Chancay-Bambayé, different actors come together. Different interests converge, both related to water for irrigation, for the population, And therefore, this space was selected also because in this space, we had been working with a regional basin council as a governance model that gathered all these actors for the definition and planning of water management efforts. In the basin selected, therefore, a evaluation project took place which aimed at developing the specific case in Peru within the basin, and above all, to present and disclose the concepts and results in the water valuation networks and international fora. The methodology was intense, a lot of hard work, many surveys involving more than 260 participants as members of the different stakeholders, and a series of workshops have been held. I believe this has been of great value also because there have been many participatory workshops allowing in the process of the questions and analysis of the different valuation factors have helped that the representatives of the basin themselves can have a dialogue on this and strengthen their view, a more common view, a more rational view of the water resource management efforts. And this has led to understand the different notions and valuations of all different actors in the basin, showing the common points on which we can work to strengthen basin governance. The initial results we have are that in the framework of fundamental values, it has been interesting to recognize that many of the actors, or most of the actors, have recognized the value of self-management, that is, how they can help others, and the value of conservation as the key values among the fundamental values. On the other hand, among the allocated values, we have also been able to see that, first of all, we see the value of health. In second place, the value of the environment. And in third place, the value of economic development. And lastly, regarding the governance values analyzed, we see that all values of social equity, justice, continuous improvement, transparency, have an average perception among all actors. Although this is still work in progress, I would like to share some achievements of this project. Through this work, we have better positioned the Basin Council. These are better recognized by the actors, and their work is highly valued. There has been greater integration of different actors, both in the basin as well as in the transfer basins. New tools have been developed for water valuation by the groups of interest, and we have strengthened water valuation in all its different contributions and meanings with the different actors in the basin, enabling the realization of goals. Now, what challenges do we have in the project? We are talking about a basin, 150 out of 159 basins in the country, and with this work, we have to develop a model that will allow us to massify or expand this water valuation model to other basins in the country, so that the basin councils can also involve the water valuation processes within their water resource management efforts and thus strengthen their governance. For this, I would like to thank the Kingdom of the Netherlands for this joint effort, and we commit to continue with this process that has just started, but that we foresee will be of great interest not only for Peru, but for the rest of the countries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Minister. And I would like to thank you very much for the work already done to implement the water valuation principles in Peru, in the Canchay La Manica Basin. Thank you very much. Okay, now let us move to a plenary where we will receive more information on the implementation of the water valuation principles in Latin America and the Caribbean. I would like to invite Mr. Ombre Taylor, coordinator of the Water and Agriculture Initiative of IICA, to come forward. Ms. Elizabeth Coble, research coordinator ROSA project at ECLAC. And I will the program coordinator of the Dutch Business Development Agency, and I will refer to what the project is. I will sit over there. I will be the moderator, and I will be a speaker at the same time. Both. Well, first of all, Ombre, perhaps you could share your thoughts and explain how to implement water valuation principles and how this is connected to IICA activities. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. For IICA, it is truly an honor to participate and share some of our experiences and the perspective we are developing based on the Water and Agriculture Initiative. First of all, I would like to highlight something that the DG mentioned yesterday, the importance of honoring and of taking action based on commitments agreed to. We have heard the different countries and their participation, and this brings great peace of mind to know that we are very much aligned with the priorities of the different organizations responsible for these activities, but at the same time, we feel more pressure to find innovative alternatives, finding solutions, and particularly to begin searching for new partnerships that will hopefully allow us to more effectively comply and have a bigger impact through our technical cooperation. Now, as to the Water and Agriculture Initiative, something that I believe that coincides with these values mentioned by Madam Ambassador is that the initiative is focused on the agriculture producers in the rural communities. Oftentimes we talk about an elderly population, a big percentage of the elderly population with a high participation of women also. And I believe that the analysis of what we need to do has to consider a series of dimensions, not just the economic or social or political dimension. We need to be more creative. We have to come up with a sound partnerships that will allow us to comprehensively approach solutions. And going directly into the Water and Agriculture Initiative, allow me to quickly go over the 4 lines that I believe are valid to highlight some of the elements that our partners highlighted, particularly water storage and production, our first line of action. We recognize that technology is essential, and therefore we need to jointly seek the best technology, best solutions to make these available to our producers, always respecting the agricultural ecosystem. We understand and recognize that we do rely on the health and well-being of forests and of conservation areas in order to increase water availability and thus food productivity. Now, as to the efficient use, our second line, we clearly understand that if we do not change, we will have serious problems due to the pressure to generate and create food as imposed by the global reality in the marketplace. So to invest in technology and innovation and digitalization as a tool to reach more persons and provide more solutions is fundamental. Line 4, driving investment. Well, here we must understand and recognize that this is not just a matter of environmental and social sustainability. It is also a matter of economic sustainability, and therefore we need to seek practices that are effective and productive, sustainable production methods that are also compensated by a payment for services, and this type of methods and mechanisms that can truly be part of the equation for our producers so that this is not seen as something that it represents an additional cost. And I will focus on line 3, governance. which is the one, perhaps the main reason why ICA has put such such great emphasis on water and agriculture. We have recognized, first of all, that the agriculture sector, with a few exceptions, but in the vast majority of the cases, is not part of the decision-making process, the relevant decisions related to water management in countries. And since decision makers do not consider agriculture, well, we are not considering, therefore, producers themselves. And we have seen the demonstrations worldwide, the problems with pricing and problems with market access. And if we're dealing with producers with so many limitations that are down at the bottom of the poverty deciles, this is a structural problem that we need to solve in a more holistic and more comprehensive manner. In the initiative, in fact, we have found that very likely governance is the most critical element that we have to deal with, and the most complex. We recognize the most complex to solve, but it brings certain peace of mind to understand and recognize that we are not alone in this task. And of course, ICA's invitation is so that we all come together, come across those meeting points, be more efficient in the field, try to be more efficient in what we do by joining efforts and seek solutions in the most efficient manner. Thank you very much, Umbray. Thank you for highlighting water governance, which is complex, but is so relevant and so relevant to share. So thank you very much. Now we will listen to Ms. Elizabeth Coble, Research Coordinator, ROSA Project at ECLAC. Well, it is a pleasure to be here with you. We thank those present here in the meeting room in person, as well as those that have joined us online throughout these last days. Dear participants, together we will address one of the most significant challenges of our times: integrated water valuation in our region, a task which requires vision, collaboration, and decisive action. I would like to begin with the fundamental premise that water is the heartbeat of the planet, the vital flow that nurtures, maintains, and connects our lives and ecosystems. But how do we measure its true value? Well, the response to this question is complex, multidimensional, and critical for the management of our water resources. At ECLAC, we recognize that water valuation goes beyond economic aspects and covers both the social and as well as environmental values. The value is connected to its irreplaceable role in preservation of life, in the culture of our communities, and in the viability of our ecosystems and our own survival. Particularly in our region, this is especially important given the wealth of our natural environment and the deep cultural connection we have with water. During the third edition of the Regional Water Dialogues in 2023, we had an opportunity to have a solutions brainstorm to value water and accelerate achievement of SDG 6. How to consider and reconcile multiple water values among the decision-making processes. And some of the thoughts shared on the alignment of the principles of water valuation and water transition, together with our partner in the Water Valuation Initiative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, were evident in the agenda of the Regional Action for Water and the following voluntary commitments. 1, to increase awareness in all spaces on the multiple values of water. 2, foster the principles of water valuation as a basic tool to accelerate the necessary progress to ensure progress with the Agenda 2030 goals. 3, specify certain values that occasionally are hidden as our social values, cultural values, environmental and economic values related to water in all its cycle, generating incentives and political and socioeconomic dynamics to better manage it efficiently and sustainably. And lastly, to strengthen education on water values, to empower different communities and actors to participate in the building and implementation of these solutions and improve decision-making that have an impact on the quality and availability of water. To understand the value of water in its different uses, in its different forms, and for the different actors involved and different processes, this is the number one step to overcome the governance issues that prevail in the region and to drive this water sustainable and inclusive transition proposed by ECLAC. As we have mentioned in these last few days, water governance involves a multiplicity of public-private agencies, civil society, crosses boundaries, and does not respect administrative borders. So to work in synergy is key, and therefore we thank all the contributions and progress we have been able to make with the regional group of experts in water resources. And the idea of these dialogues is that we can expand our connections, that we better understand our different ways of approaching water and ways of working and valuing this very important resource. Lastly, we will call upon each of those present to take this conversation forward beyond this event, so to become the agents of change we need in the sector, and that participate in the different communities and areas of influence, helping us to disseminate this and exchange views, as well as share progress and cooperation on these principles in the region, so that together we can advance towards water management that ensures the sustainability of this resource. I do not want to end my comments without mentioning the following phrase to bear in mind. Water is our treasure, a common treasure. It is a wealth that must be shared. To start to value it precisely today means acting for tomorrow, and ensuring it is to ensure our life forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I loved your last sentence. I was quite excited because this is the reason for us to be here, to value water in order to have a better connection for life. Okay, now it's my turn. We have talked a lot about the five principles of water evaluation, so I'm going to give you more details about the program of initiative of water evaluation. I have prepared a presentation that you will see on the screen. The initiative for water evaluation is a program funded by the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but as the Vice Minister of Peru said, because of the high level of water, there are different member states in the United Nations have come together and they said water is considered as granted. We need to change this. It is so essential that we need to work together to better understand water, to better value water, and then to better manage it. So the Kingdom of the Netherlands has taken this this advice from the United Nations, and has developed this program. So our our goal is to implement the principles of water evaluation for a better decision making in relation to water. So to be more inclusive, more equal, and more holistic. We need to generate a systemic change in how to value water in politics, in funding, in practice, and as the Vice Minister of Uruguay says, in our behavior. Those are the five principles of water valuation. The first one is to recognize and accept the multiple values of water for different groups and interest in any decision affecting water. It is not easy because what we see now in the decision-making aspect is that normally the productive value or the financial value of water is more important than the rest of the values because it is more measurable, it is more tangible, and the other values are not normally are not so tangible to be taken into account and the decision-making purposes. The second one is to reconcile values and to build trust. As Andre said, this reconciliation of the values is our biggest challenge, I believe. We need to build trust in the sectors working with water and beyond. And not only uh, in order to have this and this more inclusive and more transparent, more transparent decision making active. The third one is to protect the sources, rivers, basins, aquifers, ecosystems that are associated not only for our generation but also for future generations. And number four is to educate to empower. We need to educate on the intrinsic value of water. We do not exist, there's no life in the planet without water. So we try to, with our program, we try to better educate people that you here, you're already working with water. You are aware about this, but there are many other people that are not outside. So we try to reach them for them to feel this connection with water. And number five is to invest and innovate. It is necessary to invest in water and to innovate in it in order to develop new technologies, but also to speak on how to improve the water governance. Why do we create the water evaluation principles? The water crisis is a governance crisis as well. We need to co-create all together. The action needs to be a collective one. We need inclusive spaces where everyone feels safe in order to speak and to have dialogues. Water is considered as granted. So we prioritize human use, particularly for productive processes. We need this to be more inclusive. And as program, we try to give more spaces for the value of water in women, young people, and local communities. The United Nations told us that it is important to give spaces to these groups that not always have a place on the table. As a program, we implemented this principle of water evaluation with different countries, with different partners in different regions. Here in Latin America and the Caribbean, we're working with Peru's, Colombia's, Chile's, Brazil, and Mexico's governments. And the next panel, you will hear what they have done in these countries, and with different partners in the private sector, civil society, and what we are doing with the program is to put the value of water higher in the agenda of the financial sector, for example. Many people working in pension funds are not aware of the risk of water to their investment. So we try to educate them about the importance of water as well. And we are also focused in the inclusion of young people, women in local communities, as I have mentioned already. Water valuation is something that we need to develop all together. It is a process. We, as a program, will try to provide a knowledge platform to develop tools, to develop good examples, but we are at the beginning, we are initiating. So I would like to highlight this part. And something else that I would like to highlight is water valuation has may be interpreted in different manners. We as program, we interpret this as inclusion of multiple values for of water for decision-making purposes. But there's another group, and we work with them, and they work in valuation, which is the fair price, which is different compared to what we are doing, but we are linked, we are combined. So I would like to highlight this because in Spanish, this word is one word. In English, we have two. So we have also media campaigns to provide more knowledge and to give more knowledge on water. We are implementing this in different places. These are some pictures of sessions we have held, but we have many more. So with that, I would like to close my intervention. So you know what are the five principles of water evaluation. So we're going to move to the next panel that will be moderated by Crystal Angel. And she has double role, moderator and speaker as well. Well, for now, I want to thank you, Ombre and Elizabeth, for being here and giving us your knowledge. Thank you so much. So, I would like to highlight that you can see a QR code on my back. When you scan it, you can complete some questions about how you value water. So please scan the QR and let us know. Now, let's move to the next panel. I would like to invite Mrs. Margarita Villafañe, Governor in charge of the Arhuaco people of La Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta, Colombia, to the front. Mr. Kenneth Alfaro, Youth Network for Water Latin America. Mrs. Marisa Marpesero, Women for Water Representative in Latin America and the Caribbean. Mrs. Ana Carolina Argolo Nascimento de Castro, Director President of the National Water and Basic Sanitation Agency of Brazil. Mrs. Crystal Angel, Valuing Water Initiative, Government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and at the same time working for the Foundation Herencia Ambiental of the Caribbean in Colombia. Mr. Carlos Esteves, Water Resources Coordinator, Cabinet Ministry of Public Works, Chile. Mr. William Salas, Water Resources Specialist, Ana, Peru. So we have a complete panel now. I'm going to give the floor to Crystal Angel. Hello, hello. Good morning. It is a pleasure for me to be here with you, and it is a pleasure to be part of this panel with this distinguished group of people with whom we're going to talk a little bit today. To open the panel, I would like to start with a brief analysis of the values, because sometimes we believe that it is easy to include different values, and as Iris says, we give for granted water and our values. We believe that our vision and the values about water we have are the values normal. So this is the way we grew up. It is in our unconscious. So we are not, very often, we are not capable to see that there are other different values. And those are the values that give us security. I know who I am. I know what I believe. This is good, but it also generates some sort of walls that affect us to be able to understand values that are outside the reality in which we grew and where we move on a daily basis. And as soon as we grow up and we move to our profession or science, so any profession is evidence-based, Unfortunately, sometimes we generate walls that may be more difficult to break, to open us, to understand other values. And the situation, what has happened and is happening now, is that we end by polarizing these values. If those are mine, those who are not mine are different, and we see this nowadays in politics. So there has been sort of a polarization where it is difficult to find these spaces for reconstruction because we go to the extremes and it is difficult for us. And right now, our global society has considered difficult to find these spaces for agreement and reconciliation. So I believe that it is important to start by recognizing that each one of us comes with a series of values and that we do not have all of them. This is important. And that the values that are currently uh, guiding our society are values that come from intellect, as it is mentioned. It is easier to think in how we're going to value from things that can be measured, scientific or mathematical. It's just that other values that we cannot quantify and become difficult, so we leave them aside, and that do not come from science. Right now, what we value as Western culture is what is generated comes from science. Don't mean that it is wrong, and this is where we start polarizing. Well, is it science or emotional? No, this what we precisely want to see is to find these common points. But we need to admit that the dominant values are some values and not the other ones. In that regard, it is important to admit that these dominant values are currently linked to scientific evidence, to a process of knowledge generation that very often is a competitive process and that end by being discriminatory of many other voices and many other values in water terms. It is also important to see that from this uptake, we have not found solutions to any problem. Many of problems of water have been generated from this uptake when it is closed. And therefore, from values of water, I'm going to particularly speak in the case of Colombia, but in general, what we want is to start listening other voices with other values that maybe will supplement and everything that is intellectual, the specialized knowledge in one way or another from the emotional side and not necessarily uh, everything specialized, but maybe the holistic vision, this integral vision I mentioned a while ago. Now, to do so, there are different tools. A very important tool is the deep listening. It is mentioned this here. So, listening, but not listen because you're speaking and that's it. No, to listen, we need to work internally, which is to open the space for us to be capable to think, and other people with other visions may be right. They may have an important point of view, interesting, and this begins with an internal task, which is to open to deep listening. And something very important is that we do not listen to change our values. No, we listen to understand the other's values and to be able to reach to solutions that will take into account the needs of everybody. This is very important because I say, no, I will never think this way. No, it is not necessary. We do not need to change our values, particularly if we come from the science sector. We need to open ourselves to think that with other values, we can build solutions that will take care of the different visions and the different needs that exist when there are other visions. So this is what we have been trying to do in Colombia. And that's why the process of the initiative of water evaluation has started in Colombia by listening the voices that are normally not heard. And we have generated partnerships with groups, indigenous groups from different parts of the country. So we have Margarita here with us. She comes from the Caribbean coast, but we have also had the opportunity to travel to the Putumayo upper basin, where the Amazonia in Colombia begins, to listen these voices on how from these millennial cultures, water is value, what is the vision they have about water, and how we can, how with this old age knowledge can we build solutions to the problems we experience. The process just began. We are working with the Ministry of the Environment. We want to generate new partnerships, for example, with the Commission of Water Regulation, here with Ruth. And this is framed in the policy of the administration, which is land zoning around water. This is the policy of the Colombia's government right now. And precisely from water, not only as the water resource, but on a more integral manner in the full cycle. Water and the sky is something that we do not take into account. Underground water, little considered in this land zoning aspect. So this is uh, this is it. So to conclude, I would like to share with you a quite interesting analysis of the AI that is somehow uh, carrying out analytical processes where through this intelligence, the intellect is being managed from the machines. And I read a sentence of president of the University of Columbia in New York that I would like to share with you in close. And he said, in the past, works were related to muscle, to strength. In the present time, works are related to knowledge, to the intellect, to the one that knows more. And in the future, the work will be related to emotional matters and the heart, because this is what machines are not going to be able to do. So with that, I stop speaking. I'll move to Rosa Margarita Villafaña. She comes from a traditional family of magos, which are the spiritual guides in the Arawak culture. She works to defend the rights of members and the Arhuaco people with an important path in preservation of water resources that begin in the Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta. She is focusing in young children, young people, children, adolescents, and family as a main pillar to preserve the cultural and social wealth and environmental wealth. And to guarantee the survival of the Ikuku Arhuaco being. So I would like to start with Margarita. I have been lucky enough working with her for many years. I would like to ask you, Margarita, what is the vision from the Arhuaco people and on water? What makes this vision supplement the traditional view of water? Thank you. My appreciation to everyone, particularly to ICLAC, who gives us the opportunity to be here. Our vision on water, I must start by saying that we consider land as the mother and the earth as mother, and the earth veins as blood. Water is the blood of earth. Minerals, rocks are the bones of the body. Vegetation, trees represent man. From this conception, we live sharing with family, with everyone. Therefore, indigenous people in the Sierra Nevada have the mission to protect, to preserve, under this vision that earth is our mother. Therefore, it deserves being cared in order to preserve the ecosystem, and of course, water is part of our life. Without water, there's no life. So, protection of the integrality of the territory will facilitate protection on an integrated manner. And to do so, we have sacred places from the Conado to the sea, where each sacred site is connected, where we, maybe this is not the right word, but so this is a way for us to pay, to connect with Earth in order to protect, in order to preserve the elements on Earth. So we have special places that connect, and where we go to for rituals to establish harmony, to be able to establish balance, where anytime a disease occur or something happens, we go to these important places in order to heal our body, but also to heal the earth body. So we keep this relationship, this mutual relationship between earth and us as people, fulfilling this legacy, this old legacy. We keep the balance and protection of all the elements that exist. So for us, water is sacred. We respect water as a sacred element and not as a resource, as a vital liquid. Without it, we do not have life, we do not have family. Communities, each community, there are four indigenous people communities. Each one of us has this mission, and we do this from family. We do this from, so each, everybody has a responsibility to meet, to fulfill, which is to protect, to take care of water. I still have some time. So, let's say that the mission we have, which is not anything related to practices, because we became, there is something in fashion nowadays, I mean, to use social media. We're not influencers. No, we don't do this because we want to be influencers. We do this because this is a live conviction. We, it is a responsibility. It is a live responsibility, not only for us, but also thinking that we are in the upper part of the Sierra Nevada. In the lower part, the rivers downstream are feeding other families, other people. Therefore, we need to protect, to preserve without pollution. And the river goes downstream as we need to breathe. Same thing for the river. The river needs to start to run and go up to, they have to, up to the river needs to go. It goes to the sea. In this point of encounter, it plays a very important role. The preservation of species. Species are articulated there. So people used to say that when the sea is silent, species go to the sea, dance, and come back to fresh water. So whereas everything from fresh water goes to the sea, so this relationship is the one that led us to have this life, life of communication, articulation, connection for species to continue, for species continue living. And this is the way. So we need this chain of communication, of articulation, in order to keep species alive. Water needs to communicate with the sea to play an important role, as we need liquid in our body. Although we have a liquid, which is the blood, we also need to be fed from water.
Thank you very much, Margarita. I would like to offer the floor to Kenneth Alfaro. Right now, he is Youth Network for Water, Latin America, and a consultant in water and sanitation. Welcome, Kenneth. Our question is, how did this youth network arise, and what do you think the value added it means to bring youth into decision-making related to water? Thank you, Krista. Well, first of all, good morning, all of you. Allow me to tell you that the network started in 2015. There was a first meeting in Nicaragua, fostered by the GWT with other partners, and they sought the youngsters that were interested in water matters. And they set a very ambitious goal for us, and that is how to ensure that Central American youth could be participating actively in integrated water resource management. That was huge. But anyway, over these years, we have advancing significantly, working on lines like volunteers, political leveraging, training, and that is why we have shared the water values so much, and the importance of empowerment. In fact, we have some lessons learned over the years, and by seeking spaces to participate and share our voice, we have come across barriers of different natures. The first question that oftentimes was posed to us, why do us young youth want to participate? What can they contribute? Now, looking at this over the years, youth basically has come to a critical point where environmentally matters and climate change, and that myth that water was an endless resource, as we were taught in grade school. Now we are facing a reality. None of that is true. There is a crisis that continues to get worse. So I believe that something that characterizes youth is precisely that by facing this reality and by not accepting status quo, basically like coming to a conference to hear every year about the millions of people that do not have water and do not have sanitation, oftentimes they tell us that we are sort of too impatient. But I believe that especially those that do not have the water resources need that push that the different sectors give to water. And something important that youth adds to all of this is the innovation side, because we should not just complain about a reality that exists. We need to create solutions, create linkages among sectors, and that has been one of the most important things the network has been able to do. Finding spaces and taking ideas. We know there are important challenges as to the inclusion of youth, because being very realistic, oftentimes those of us that do have the privilege to have access to higher education are those that end up usually finding these spaces for leverage. But with the rural youth, the indigenous youth, and many of these voices are not being heard, and we consider that that was one of the biggest challenges that we would like to strengthen together with our partners and allies. Thank you, Kenneth. Hopefully in all this, youth training process, you can incorporate the other stances as the one Margarita was sharing to strengthen the newer generations. Now let us move to Marisa Mar. Marisa is a Master in Public Policies, special in communication. She was a member of the Secretariat of the Fourth Water Forum, and she's advisor to the basin, the Rio Grande River Basin in Mexico, and has been working at a national, local, and regional area. She is a consultant and co-founder of Women for Water in Latin America and the Caribbean. Precisely, this is what we would like to ask Marisa about. What role do women's values have in this, and how can we strengthen the principles of this Women for Water network? Thank you, Cristal. Thank you for the invitation. Obviously, the rest of my colleagues, I am representing my other colleagues, and to all of you that are here present and those that are connected virtually, I believe that the fact that this event, which is lengthy, but that you are still here, shows the importance you give to this subject matter within your own agendas and that of your organizations. I would like to start by saying that last year, the Secretary General of UN said that to achieve gender equality, we have 300 years still ahead of us. When we say that SDGs have goals for 2015 or 2030 or 2050, in this case, we are seeing this 300 years into the future. It is important that last year, at the third edition of these dialogues that took place, a diagnosis, a report on water and gender gaps was shared, and 12 of the 13 members of ECLAC do not have explicit water and gender policies. To talk about values, obviously, this should challenge us regarding culture, water culture particularly. And this is not just the culture, but we're talking about water cultures as individuals, as a collectiveness. But we must recognize there's a dominant culture based on economic value. I know that most of us see it in those terms. But when we talk about culture, we should go through a change in behavior, which resounds a lot and seems to be fashionable. But before we get to that point, before we think about that, we should examine our beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, feelings, as Crystal was saying a while ago. And that leads us to revise and review values, the value of women I work with particularly. I have reposed my individual and collective values in this work with my colleagues. Once again, I have found the value of inclusion so that everyone can have a voice, intergenerationality that has resulted from working with women that have come through these spaces before us, as well as the youth, the young girls that we hold this dialogue with. This leads us to respect experience and the dialogue of knowledge and respect for scientific knowledge, and it leads us to empathy. There's no way to connect, as Margarita was saying. There's really no way to connect if we do not understand the reality of working mothers that are part of the water sector, the gatherers, the carers, and the time this implies to open up a gap in education and economic opportunities. We should think of women, homeless women, and menstruation, and pregnant women, and among these, the most vulnerable, the indigenous pregnant women, women activists, the guardians of water themselves, the leaders, as so many of us. And this, depends on having the freedom of expression. And at given point in time, we are made fun of, and perhaps our lives can be threatened when we defend territories. When we talk about a change in behavior, one of the things we would expect is, for example, how will this translate into decision making? And considering that this International Women's Day was focused on showing the need to fund the women's access to different rights. One of these initiatives has to do with investment and innovation and multiple values. And with this, I am about to end. I would like to highlight that obviously women, if we contribute and we contribute to this, supporting all these actions in the water sector, there is a whole diversity of women, and we must consider that for us to really have access to decision-making powers, we need to, and this we must stand out in this diversity that we are women in ministries related to water, for example, or water management, women that are in spaces in water and sanitation service providers, those that that are at this home of the House of Agriculture of the Americas. This is one of the most male-oriented sectors, and in agriculture we see small and large farmers and rural women, obviously, professional women, engineers, agronomists, diplomats. If you allow me, I will share some numbers with you in a moment, and how the type of space we occupy, well, the levels of space we occupy are not when perhaps we are in the cabinet, but not at the higher levels that would allow us to participate in decision making. Let me share some data. Only 18% of the women are in service providers, water and sanitation service providers in Central America. Water management associations only have 27% women. In agriculture, less than 31% of the women are landholders. And in multilateral organizations, only 13% are in are directors. But I wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Marisa. And I like to hear those ending figures, because it is a pleasure to now introduce a woman that does have a director position in the water agency, Ana Carolina Argolo, Director President of the National Water and Basic Sanitation Agency of Brazil, the focal point of the agency for the Water Valuation Initiative. She is a geologist too. The question for Ana Carolina is, in the case of Brazil, you are starting to work within the framework of the Water Valuation Initiative. So we would like to know how the principles of water valuation are incorporated into national water policies and how these have been implemented in Brazil. Thank you, Cristal. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here in this dialogue, which is so important, so enriching. The legal framework in Brazil that guides the action of the agency are aligned with the water valuation principles at different levels. The water law, the law that recognizes water as a resource with economic value, and that is an instrument to foster rationalization of water use, and that gives the user an idea of the value of water. Another important law is the Basic Sanitation Framework that focuses on the reduction in water losses, resource rationalization. All these things are very much aligned with all the principles. And they play a very important role in these areas of activity. Ana plays a very important role coordinating all the actors and promoting and fostering these principles that are aligned with what is done at the agency nowadays. What the initiative proposed is very much aligned with that these be brought on board in all systems. Ana in Brazil says that when we talk about the principles to recognize and accept the multiple values of water, and the second thing is to reconcile values and generate trust. Ana plays a fundamental role because today we have a governance system that is very complex and that involves several stakeholders. There are two areas that we work in Brazil. The provincial level, Brazil has 27 federative units, so there are 28 heads of water authorities, and we have the basin agencies. So all this variety of actors require articulation. So Ana is the one that articulates all these systems, and the idea of bringing in the principles means that we will be an inspiration so that all other actors and sectors and all those that participate in water resource management can also adopt the same principles. Ever since last year, Ana has entered into an agreement with all federative entities in Brazil. This is the Pact for the Water Governance. The pact basically aims at strengthening institutional strengthening and increasing cooperation to improve water resource management at the national level and to improve regulations and basic sanitation services, the implementation of dams, safety also, and it aims at consolidated a series of actions with the different provinces in order to plan and monitor and strengthen actions and improve integrated management. And here we have the part on innovation and training and involvement of youth and civil society. So I believe that all these actions focused on governance are very important so that the principles be applied and replicated throughout the entire country. Excellent, thank you. Congratulations. Well, let us continue now with Carlos Esteves. He was a General Director of Waters of Chile and currently is the Water Resources Coordinator of the Cabinet of the Ministry of Public Works that coordinates the main activities related to water governance and management in Chile. The question for Carlos is as follows. Recently, Chile added water valuation into the process to create the basin or bodies in the country. Why did Chile want to work in this water valuation initiative and water valuation principles, Carlos? Well, thank you, Cristal. We really will never know that because, well, we seek and sometimes we find without really looking for things. In our case, the relationship with Value Waters is both. In 2021, when I read that, when I mysteriously received a water valuing report, I was surprised to see that although the emphasis was laid on valuing water, the principles started from an assumption, and that was that there are different water values, and different water values coexist. Some are very visible, others are not. Why do I mention this? Because in the case of our water policy in Chile, and very likely in many other countries, the situation is similar. We try to respond and have a plan, a resilient plan of action to address global changes. And by global changes, I mean demographic growth, climate change, changes in the economic models we have and use. So the plan needs to aim at sustainable water management. I will talk about basically this water management because this is part of the SDG. And as countries, we tend to work more on the goals of SDG 6 that are finalists, those goals that in themselves are an objective, as 6.1, access to drinking water, 6.2, sanitation, 6.3, quality, or 6.6, caring for ecosystems, etc. And that is the natural emphasis. We do not really pay attention to the fact that there are several tools and goals that are related to recommendations on how to do it, strengthening capacities, including participation, fostering integrated water resource management with efficiency and efficacy. So the components of these goals, the instrumental goals or supporting tools that are so important, show that a water policy has to worry about the who, but also about the how, particularly the how we do things. And when we saw water valuation, we saw an opportunity there. I do not know if you have seen this, but in our case, we go to the base and we go to the ground and we listen to certain voices, some of them saying, no, well, we very well know our differences and it is very clear. And that will never be solved because we have been working on these in working groups. And what is missing here is for you to government to roll up your sleeves and do your job. Penalize whoever you have to penalize, arrange whatever you have to arrange. And the responsibility, they dump it on someone else. But there are other responses also we received. Oh, no, everything has been solved. We know each other very well. We have addressed everything appropriately and we resolve differences internally here in the community. And exceptionally, we may resort to justice. That oftentimes happens and that makes us very happy. But oftentimes this hides the fact that those that have everything really solved are the prevailing interests, the dominant interests, and others are not seen, others are not there. That is why we are interested and that is why we paid attention, because clearly we have a need as a country. And I hope that in the second round of questions, I can tell you more of what we are doing. In my next 30 seconds, I guess I can finish now. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. We celebrate that a Ministry of Public Works has found a reconciliation of water values as something of interest. This is very important for the region and for the world. Okay, now we will offer the floor to William Salas Lamadrid from the Water Resources Specialist and ANA Peru. They basically work on ensuring water security and improving basin management in the country. The question for William has to do with the process mentioned by Vice Minister Christian on the Chancay Lambayeque Basin, and what aspects of the water valuation initiative supplement and have been important in water resource management, in this case, the Chancay Lambayette Basin. Well, thank you. Very good morning, everyone. Thank you, ECLAC and ICA, for allowing me to participate in this space to inform of the progress that we have in this initiative of the Peru Values Water Project. To put you in context, the project was developed or is under development in the Chancay Lambayeque Basin on the northern coast of Peru. We have a Water Resource Council at the basin level back since 2011, and a water resource management plan that has been updated and approved through a citizen support in November 2023, and that focuses on water management, adaptation to climate change, intercultural efforts, and gender. And our vision, is to ensure our demand for present and future generations, improving efficiency, and for the consolidation and preservation of ecosystems facing challenges of climate change, and basically strengthening governance. And now, as to your question of how the initiative was created, well, we use HEAT. This is a Water Resource Council, and water security is part of the Water Resource Plan. The methodology applying the water principles and values adds to water security because this will help us to identify and quantify the values given to water by the groups of interest, that is, the dominant values and the less dominant values. So this input will allow us to help make the best decisions and to interrelate these values that we have been talking about, fundamental values and governance, etc., to propose strategies, programs, and projects, basically to strengthen governance and additional aspects to the initiative. We have been able to strengthen the integration and articulation of all actors. We have 3 areas we work with, the uplands, in the midlands, and other in the lowlands. There have been spaces of dialogue developed to better understand the subject matter and the issues and propose alternatives, and some proposals to adjust the regulations and laws. There is greater work now with the regional governments, and the integration is basically we have been working on the national water authorities plans, and they have the water infrastructure plan that devotes a percentage of this plan for conservation and management efforts at the sources of these basins. So we have been articulating the actors with the regional government of Cajamarca, and with this we can connect with them and through synergies that have allowed us to identify activities, and with the contribution of the local water authorities, we can develop fact sheets and help with the conservation and management of the basin. In this space, strategies have been proposed, and I believe that one of the main strategies is that the actors decide that decision-making should be done at the local level. This should not come from the central government level. This must be done locally, and this is very important in my view, because it is very important to have this bottom-up planning. I know I have run out of time. Thank you. Thank you, William. The case of Peru with management and all the research and the different values of the Changambay, Lacabayeque Basin has left a lot of lessons learned for other countries in the territory. And The second round of questions is basically the same question for everyone, and that has to do precisely with lessons learned of the processes or some processes when there are no lessons learned necessarily. Well, then the next steps that would be taken by the different organizations in this process to bring together the different values and particularly share these for a more equitable decision-making process. So with this, let us shift the order, and now we will begin with Kenneth.
Well, to answer this question, I was precisely thinking that when we talk about the values of water, there is a saying here in Costa Rica, meaning that we only know the value of water till the well is dried. So very often, and when we give a presentation on water and sanitation, one of the first questions I would like to ask people is, do you know where the water that you receive at home comes from and where it does it go? So I believe that to progress in this valuation, we should have access um, easy in an easy manner to the information. So where water that we receive at home comes from, if the sources are protected or not, what is the quantity of this water, the volume of this water, is it affected by because of the climate change? What is the quality of water, as the case we discussed a lot yesterday about the case in Costa Rica, this contamination because of hydrocarbons. All these people that did not have water value it much more after that situation. I wanted to mention this in this panel because it is an interesting idea. So, meaning where we could progress with these initiatives of water valuation and also to take advantage of the positive experiences that already exist. I would like to mention two cases here in Costa Rica. The Centers of Sustainability of Community Aqueducts that through a more detailed monitoring of the quality of water in their communities, are transferring this information to the technical staff working with community aqueducts as well as to communities. So this is an interesting opportunity, and I will also wanted to mention the case of the NGO Nicola Keeps Water Keep. Carolina, her director, is over there. They have a very important task in the coastal area in Santa Teresa Covano because surface water is monitored. The one that is water coming from the rivers and water that goes to the sea. And this is communicated to the community using different means. I mean, the results of this information is communicated to the community through different means. So we can see how people react when they know that there is pollution or not. So it will be interesting to hopefully have a platform. Why not? Collecting these lessons learned, and that could add much more for people really know this information related to water. And this way we could learn to take care of water even more. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kenneth. Now, Ana Carolina. Thank you. We have many lessons learned, and I believe that we try to promote the improvement of the processes more and more because they will let us to assure this management that includes all the provinces. We have tried to include new ways to act, not as command and control, but promoting the participants, the systems, the stakeholders have better participation at the local level, transparent participation as well as participatory. And one example that I bring for you all is what we do in low availability areas related to water. to deal with the conflicts, the existing conflicts in these areas. In Brazil, in northeast Brazil, that suffers a lot because of the drought, where conflicts are higher, we undertake a process that we call water negotiated assignment. In this process, this procedure is used in different places where the conflicts are where there are more conflicts. So we from the demand of water availability, the direction of the annual allocations of water occurs according to the situation of the river dam. So we hold some meetings where we have a user from an area, those who use, those who depend on the same water source. I mean, that depends on a reservoir. We, with the rainy season, once the rainy season is over, we make a water division, but this division of water is negotiated with users and has a technical expert who takes care, who coordinates the meeting to avoid the confusion, but he is the one that makes these decisions because this year the distribution is a participatory distribution as well as transparent. All the process takes place on a YouTube channel live. So those are some of the measures that we implement in order to promote an improvement in the process, in this complex process, which is to implement the management in conflict areas. Very quickly, I want to tell you that we are embedded in the search of gender equity. So the National Water Council has a committee for gender equality within the structure, within the organizational structure, and has this committee, and we also have held even United Nations participating in pilot projects, raising data from Brazil with gender segregation, trying to enhance the studies and gender within the context of SDG 6. These are some of the actions we have implemented so far. Thank you, Ana Carolina. Now, Carlos. Something I did not mention. One of the things important for us is in this initiative of water evaluation is that we are implementing many things linked to water, as you all, and they are dedicated to this topic. It is very important to have a partner that is always reminding what they are doing, where they are in relation to the water evaluation, because we are in the rural water wealth or in the legislative discussion. And there's a panel that is telling you, don't forget, do not forget. And this is a very important task. And the way with this initiative contributes to us. And this is news in progress. I mean, the question is news in progress. The government started saying that they wanted to develop the basin councils, but this is, I think it is a country surrounded by the Andes mountain, and there are many basins, not so much as Peru, but we have 101 basins. And you cannot have 101 water councils. But the idea is to start working on this. And this discussion and was politicized very quickly. There was a large farming associations that said, but we are doing things correctly. And they were doing it correctly with some deficiencies, because the classic look of the agriculture is more than quantity than quality. The classic look of agriculture has been focused on distribution of surface water, and in the case of the underground water, to obtain what is possible to extract. The ecosystem look is not one of the main concerns, or what is the quality of water when it gets to the sea. No, this discussion becomes kind of political very quickly, and basically because we did not have any law that ruled the basin councils. There is a draft, a bill draft. We reacted very quickly in the Ministry of Public Works because there's a law, the law of water code and climate change framework law from 2022. Both, but the Ministry of Public Works and the Water Division of the Ministry of Public Works to lead the development of strategic plans. They have to do it with the Ministry of Science, Environment, Agriculture, with citizen participation mechanisms. So the regulation of this law develops the strategic groups of water resources. It is similar to what we thought with the basin councils, but a little bit more democratic. There is an invitation to participate. I mean, this mechanism can make not only visible the most visible ones, but there is a possibility that those who complain can do it. So the task is modified a little bit now. This year we are in this year 2024 we are starting with 10 strategic groups on water course. What's good from this is that the water code gives funding for 10 years. So in Chile, the regulations have a financial report. Although there is another administration, they need to continue complying with it. So the first 10 years, we will have funding, but just for studies, for strategic plans. So to recruit consultancies, but not to have stakeholders come together. So we need to develop this. In this process, in two places, we have started working with the Valor Initiative in the southern stream where the glaciers are located. We were working together. We had a very interesting dynamic that made people from there say, "Wow, this can be seen from a different point of view." So we made the water consideration and to collect values, and now the Balloon Initiative oh, work with us on a much more difficult basis compared to Chuapa. There are many stakeholders organized for more than 100 years, but people says, okay, good, 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 let's do this. And when are they going to invest? Good, let's do this, but do you have resources? They tell this to the government. This challenge is in our process. It is not mature yet. We have not reached have not uh, succeed for now in these basins. For example, with the participation of the youth. So this is more safe because it is a cross-cutting principle. So in the case of the originated, the native people, where they are really present, it is impossible they are not there. So sometimes they turn into the dominant value because they are strong enough, but not in other regions with minoritarian presence. My apologies for saying this. We still have a lot of uncertainty. That's why we're here, to listen the neighbor and to continue learning. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Carlos. Now let's move to Margarita. Now, Margarita, your turn. Okay. and our life experience in the conception of cosmovision or from the cosmovision, the importance of Earth, because Earth is the basis of everything. This practice that we have had for 1,000 years will continue. We will continue generating or raising awareness from what we do, from our knowledge through the mamos, which are the basis of the existence of culture, culture of knowledge, and those are the ones that guide us. And they are those who warn about the need for us to give importance to our planet, to our Earth, in order to preserve the ecosystems and, of course, water, as I mentioned before, is like blood, is the blood of the earth, giving life to anything that exists on the earth. So from there, all our aim is to raise awareness, and that's good that this voice, this persistence of the voice of the mammals in our culture has come to this space. That each one of you, who are those people concerned, thinking in the future and their problems and the crisis of water. So here we are contributing with our voice, with our knowledge, and fortunately enough, the national government, let's say in Colombia, there is a constitution that recognizes and supports indigenous people with the constitution in their autonomy, in their self-government. This led us to work in conjunction with local institutions, regardless of political topics. The politicians do not they hear a lot this message, but from the local places, from the local condition, we are working with the farmers, with the neighbors, many institutions or NGOs, and we are working to protect an important part of the territory from the upper part as a strategy of protection of the territory and of water basins. Because we know that if we do not work there, water will be reduced little by little. So we will continue in this process with this work from knowledge and the strategy to raise awareness, to invite people that what we are saying is not an isolation from reality and from what science is showing. William? With regards to lessons learned, is a mean to is a tool that will let us to propose strategies to strengthen governance and the institutionality. With regard to the results, the 3 days I have participated, first we emphasized on water security, and the second day we talked about food security, and we also talked about health. That water security and food security will give us health, as you were able to listen, and the intervention of the minister in the basin, the dominant value is health and the environmental aspect. This will give us the sustainability we want. If we want to get to water security, we need to preserve and protect our systems and that our population be safe. With regard to the survey, it is representative at the level of intervention area, at the pilot level, but also but at the level of basins, it will have a percentage of uncertainty. The actions to follow, since we have a participation plan, a participation and dissemination plan to socialize the new plan of water resources management. We will continue developing the service and these workshops in order to have a more significant sample. And with that, we can comply with some concerns that we have, and it is presented in her intervention. There are not enough space for women and young people. So last week, we socialized the plan with a committee of users on the basis. They are some 9,000, but we have not we have not provided the training. So this is to 200, 300 people, women, because we need to break the barriers, the obstacles that don't let women to participate in water management. So first, they need to know the problem and the options that exist to improve management. This week, we started with young people at the university level and young water networks of the national authority. Why young people? Because the young people are those who will face the challenges of climate change, and they are the ones that will forecast the future. My concern is that so far we talked a lot about climate change, but we have a little knowledge, little knowledge about the effects of climate change, and not too many measures of adaptation to climate change have been made. On Peru, we knew that El Niño will come, but now we're talking about La Niña. So the climate patterns are changing suddenly. So I would like to conclude by saying that the initiative continues supporting us because so far we have applied, we are about to and by applying principles 1 and 2, where we will going to have a baseline of the dominant values as well as the non-dominant values, where from there we could, as I mentioned before, we could propose strategies and projects, but the initiative continues supporting us in order to fulfill the objectives of sustainable development we have traced in the basin and to replicate this in the other basins of the country. Thank you for everything. Thank you, William. And in closing this panel, I would like to give the floor to Marisa to give this message from the vision of gender and women. Thank you, Crystal. And the experience of what I believe we have learned in this journey for the past years, number one is the strength that we have in terms of our knowledge, because we are professional, academic women or leaders. We have influence in different areas of knowledge and in different territorial scales. It implies that we have different visions and different values, and that we are not necessarily always on agreement. It is important to admit that. So we combine the theory and practice, and within this diversity and in this integrality, we have the possibility to offer different and innovative solutions precisely. On the other hand, I will talk about the reflection, and I was talking about this economic part in terms of investment. The investment when it is focused on women, family, and community, and how this transforms these levels. But in this case, to invest in women associations enhance much more. So we are this sort of replication part, which is a model we have worked with before. What do we want? Training and capacity building to continue becoming stronger and to generate potential influence in other level. This is education for empowerment for us, and education for innovation. I retake the topic of values, things we have learned together. Is number one of the main values with the initiative is the protection of the sources. You should not forget that governance is a means for a goal. So we are interested in protecting the sources and to understand the motivations in order to protect the sources. We have understood the value of cooperation in this boards. We are stronger. The value of the data through the assessments and through assessments as the one from ECLAC, from UNESCO, from GWP, instruments that already exist for capacity building, instruments for data collection. We have also learned from the network work, and as a comparative learning, last week I was with Maria on an event of women in Vienna with women from all over the place, not only from our region, and this comparative vision is important as well. We have searched and learned that we need to generate our own dignity. We need to dignify our own work by funding it for us to have this significant participation. In that regard, we thank the support of the Initiative for Water Evaluation to have a voice in this space, but we hope we could continue contributing to the design of policies, programs in our different countries. In our next steps as a funding aspect for activities such as capacity building, the curious thing is that we look for this for us, but we have the capacity to do it from inside to outside. So the other thing is the partnerships with associations with or without gender policies. If they do have it, good. If not, we can contribute to this design. The aim is also to have more women in advocacy spaces at all levels. As Doris mentioned, remember that if we are not generating this and all these levels of water management, if it is not on the basis is from the top. So the commitment needs to come from there as well. Our contribution from our diversity in the co-creation of the water evaluation framework in the different countries, and to remember that since water is a vehicle, it has to be a vehicle for peace. This is of great importance for us. I will conclude by saying something in this that we have had after listening in the previous days, colleagues on the corridor or here. There was a comment saying, internalize, we would love to internalize a policy that we talk about. I would like that what we will internalize will be the gender aspect, the gender sensibility. This is a wish that I would love to even monitor for further exercises. I also retake this, something that somebody from AICA told me, the feminization of the thought to transform this dominant thought in the water sector and in our other sectors, and getting out of what I call the blue bubble. So many of us, that's why it has been interesting listening to people that have said, I'm not here all the time. One of the things that we really need is the intersectoral and interdisciplinary cross-cutting dialogue. Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. In closing this panel, I would like to share a sentence that I read recently, said by Borges, but it is a quote from the philosopher Emerson. It says, "Arguments do not convince anybody." I consider this interesting because we work. Most of us here work from the academic sector, quite rational, but the truth is that what moves people are not statistics. Otherwise, we have already changed many things in our daily life, nor the data, but everything that touches our heart. This is literature. It is the art, the personal stories, what moves us, what move us. And part of this evidence, if we think that we will not, what we're not gonna forget this from as the opening made by Dora Gutierrez. It was not done. It was not made by ChatGPT or by assistants, but those are the stories that remain. I am mentioning this because in this aspect to generate governance, strengthen processes, we need to think in this other emotional part that needs to be that we need to bring to the table in order to achieve the goals in society in general. I believe this includes everything we have been saying here somehow. So I end the panel with this. This session will continue. I would like to tell you that probably there's going to be a space for questions at the end. But for now, let's continue with the panel, with the session. And I'll give the floor to Iris. Thank you to the participants in this panel.
Si el fotógrafo está por ahí para una foto,
Is the
sería muy
photographer
importante.
around? It
Si
would
no,
be very
cualquiera nos
important to
toma
get
la
a
foto, se
group
le
photograph,
agradece.
or we would appreciate if anyone could take us the photograph. Thank you.
Perdón que todavía no hemos cerrado.
We have not ended this session, so allow me to continue with the next plenary. Thank you for your insights and thoughts. Let us continue with the next plenary session. I would like to invite Mr. Juan Sebastián Durango, Secretary General of the Andean Community, CAN, to come forward. Ms. Lucrecia Rodriguez, Executive Secretary of the Central American Agricultural Council, CAC, and Ms. Nazaret Porras, Advisor for the European Union delegation here in Costa Rica. We continue with this plenary, and we will share a bit about what we have heard in the previous plenary. So we have some questions. We're talking about connections and synergies now. The question is, based on this previous discussions, what projects at the multilateral level could have synergies with the Valuing Water Initiative in Latin America, and what is the role, their role in your organizations? First, allow me to offer the floor to Juan to share thoughts about what he has heard and how things are like in his organization. Hello. Well, allow me to clarify. First of all, I would like to thank ICA and ECLAC for the invitation. A clarification, I am not Secretary General, but instead an officer. Well, but in any case, the Secretary General had another agenda, so I am his delegate today. Well, anyway, but allow me to first explain quickly how the Andean community works. This is an Andean council, the Andean integration system, the presidential committee, the ministries of foreign affairs that approve decisions that are supranational and apply to all member nations that are Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. And then, as part of the General Secretariat, which is the executing body, we have the Andean Council of Ministers of the Environment and the ministers of the environment. That includes the proposals that can eventually become decisions. Decisions have generally been of three different types at the environmental level. For example, create entities or bodies like the committees I mentioned. This is the number of decision that applies to each of the different committees. Create supranational Andean Committee 763, for example, is the one of interest to us, the Andean Strategy for Integrated Water Management, which was developed in 2011 and would be interesting to get an update or a modification of this strategy regarding water valuing as well as other matters that may be outdated and drive projects sometimes due to decision we do not have the same regulations for all countries. But by decision, we can develop two projects. There's a project here for small farmers and climate change, and another is the BioCan project on biodiversity and biodiversity monitoring. December the 1st, 2020, the CAMRE created the Andean Charter. Environment was absent in the re-engineering in 2013, and now environment was taken on board for sustainable development reasons. There are six main lines. The first is water resource management, particularly in transboundary areas. We also have the one on biodiversity, which is basically SDG 12. I see that in the end, SDG 6 is also cross-cutting here. Disaster prevention, vulnerability to climate change and forest fires, and fighting against illegal mining. This is also very important. On the other hand, we have the circular economy, which precisely has to do with what we have been talking about, the circular economy of water and chemical product management. Here we want to standardize matters in all committees of the General Secretariat. Our actions projected for 2024 are to update the strategy. And here we see that the countries must mainstream in their own processes this strategy. We have the Regional Andean Water Forum to share practical experiences, good practices, like the Chayán-Lambayeque Basin and others, to include gender, youth, these projects, and particularly include countries like Ecuador and Bolivia that are not yet working on that subject matter and have an implementation plan through a project or a series of projects that could be implemented. This is what we would expect here. And that is it. Thank you. That is what I can share for the time being. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Juan, for your work putting water and environment on the agenda. Thank you. Ms. Lucrecia Rodriguez, Executive Secretary of the Central American Agricultural Council, will be our next speaker. She will share her thoughts on what has been covered in the plenary and what you do to implement the water valuation principles in your organization. Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I believe that coming back to the origin of this event, allow me to share two examples of what we are working on within the Central American integration system that covers Central America and the Dominican Republic. There are 8 countries and the Council of Ministers. After the pandemic, we discussed how the agriculture sector could play a much more active role in the decisions being worked on. So, talking about the integration system and the ministerial agreements, recalling that mandatory agreements are by consensus and mandatory, we started to work on an agenda together with environment and agriculture at two different levels, particularly addressing the political side, but at the same time involving the technical teams of the ministries to begin to socialize and make decisions. In that joint effort, well, we have been working on this now for a couple of years. They have been very fruitful. The agenda was determined as a priority. We have been talking about events and forming teams. And for this, obviously, we need people. So we resort to the emotional side of people to work on. So Apulu is an agenda we are working on that has been evolving, and what we want to bring in now is an agenda to evaluate the water system from the multi-functional level and land planning, because we know that working in the territories is multi-actor, multi-dimensional, and we must all determine our roles. And for that, we must understand all the parties that are part of development. That then is the proposal that we have on the agenda. That is, we're talking about water and agriculture as a user, but how can I be an efficient user in good practices related to soil restoration, to an irrigation system, but the drip irrigation that is efficient? But there are certain limitations, infrastructure limitations that are under the purview of the state only. So, okay, so how can we begin to establish an agenda where each one assumes responsibility for what is under each of our purviews? That is one part of the process. And the other one is an issue we have in the region, which is food security. The agenda we developed with the ministries of health, because this is under their purview, but also focusing on climate change. So we have started to work together, agriculture, health, and environment in all this area, because for agriculture, we should not forget that our objective is to produce food products. Someone mentioned earlier that we have the challenge of growing productivity fivefold, but in order to be productive, we need to make an investment. In the region, there are producers, those small producers have no access to funding. It becomes a vicious circle. So we are betting on ordering the agenda and the processes in the dry corridor to help strengthen the trust of the sector in the financial sector. So someone will be interested in saying, okay, I will invest because I can minimize I will invest because I can minimize risk. So we have to examine all these processes. We're giving priority to the dry corridor, and we have to see who is on the ground doing what, to sit down and talk and reach agreements and start to say, okay, who has to do what, and then begin and then identify the gaps. Thank you. Thank you, Lucrecia. I believe it is very important to bring the actors together, to listen to each other in depth and try to understand each other, and bring together all the values you mentioned. Okay, now we continue with Nazaret Porras cooperation advisor for the European Union delegation here in Costa Rica. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to this very relevant dialogue. Before starting, I would like to highlight some thoughts from this morning. We received a very clear example of the human face behind all these processes when we talk about water. And we were given very concrete examples of the progress being made, but at the same time of the challenges that prevail, that we need to continue working on, and the type of actions that were mentioned, and this space for dialogue we are sharing today is very necessary in the current context where we are unfortunately very far from SDG goals number 6. So in this region in Latin America and the Caribbean, although we have almost 1/3 of the water resources in the world, we see that there are more and more signs of high water stress, and this leads to economic losses, human losses, food insecurity, as has been mentioned, and in general, human insecurity. And for the European Union, this means that we have to call for action urgently at a global level through our programs of cooperation and our different instruments. We have been providing continuous support in the area of water, both regarding access to drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, as well as sustainable integrated water management. And in Latin America, for example, when we talk about climate change, we also talk about water. And through our flagship program in climate change called Euroclima, over the last few years, we have had 15 initiatives in matters related to governance, access to water, and very good examples that put into practice the different values we have shared today. And I would like to mention these all. For example, here in Costa Rica, we had an initiative working with the Asadas, the local water operators, to develop rates to protect water resources and basin management. This is working at a very local level, but in articulation with national authorities. And in Central America, we had a regional initiative with the presence of different entities of the integration to work on disaster risk reduction related to droughts and flooding. We worked in different basins. In Montevideo, worked in the fighting against drought with an early warning system and the aquifer analysis, something where we still have much more work to do for the Santa Lucia River Basin. And I could continue quoting many examples like this, but what I meant to say is that we have advanced significantly, and we need to take advantage of these regional processes for that exchange, for that cross-learning and that feedback. And I believe that entities like those present here are a very valuable platform for this purpose. I have just 2 messages from this session. One is that decision-making is fundamental. Decision-making based on transparent, inclusive efforts, highlighting the different initiatives, and that consider evidence coming from the voices that we heard this morning, but also evidence coming from science. And I would like to share here that in the European Union, we have available the Copernicus program, the objective of which is to provide a thorough, free of charge access, open access to data and information on the planet based on Earth observation via satellite and on-site data analysis. So with this Copernicus initiative, we want to provide tools for different types of users with free of charge information to make the most appropriate decision-making in the appropriate platforms. And we had developed global tools like the Surface Water Explorer with detailed statistics and maps on the planet's water. Another initiative to develop climate change plans adjusted to the region with experts from the region. And with all this information, when we have the willingness and the governance platforms, what is missing? Well, the investment. And that was mentioned in the previous panel. Regarding investment here, we believe that it is fundamental for this to be a public-private partnership. We are all responsible, as has been said here. And that is why, on behalf of the European Union, we have developed an investment agenda called the Global Gateway, where with the region, we have identified investment projects for priority infrastructure, transforming infrastructure to contribute to social and economic development. And in the framework of this initiative that we have with the entire region, I can say that all the agenda, 9 countries have identified water, integrated basin management, water treatment, water supply. So in summary, we as the European Union have been fully committed to work with the region to address these challenges. This is a priority on our agenda, and we are very grateful for the opportunity to be here.
Muchas gracias,
Thank you,
Nazaret.
Nazaret.
Qué bueno que como la
I am
Unión
glad
Europea
that
siguen
to see that as the European Union, you continue to put the agenda high on the agenda. Thank you. Now I would like to open the floor for questions from the public. We have a gentleman already here with the first question. More than a question, allow me to share some thoughts regarding the previous panel on water valuation. As an expert in basin management, I have been able to work in a large basins in Mexico and some Central American countries. And when we started, we said we had to assign a value to water, and we called it water productivity using the econometric normal techniques. And in the end, water productivity in the agriculture sector was 1 cent of a dollar per cubic meter. And as we increased in the scale, we got to the industrial level, the beverage industry. I worked with Coca-Cola back then. It was around thousands of dollars per cubic meter, and up to mining, which was even higher than that. That is productivity. And I had that idea because, and this was mentioned by Margarita this morning, the value of water. Do we give more value to jewels, mining, or to beverages, which is really not that useful? Do we assign that a higher value than food? Is that what we are doing? Curiously, working with indigenous communities, because one of the basins included indigenous communities, that their notion was completely different. Their view in the highlands is that water was enough, but man was changing it. It was a problem of contamination. And the downstream water communities and the coastal area said, we have a problem with water because we do not receive as much as we did before. And the highlands of the basin, there is excess water, and down below there is an absence of water. Each one assigns it a different value, and those are perceptions. What we think, what those at the bottom think, and what those at the top think. So in this sense, to convince society of the value of water is a value that we must communicate to society. And I worked with several non-governmental organizations to create awareness among people about the value of water. And there were several programs in Saltillo, for example, where people would go and would make voluntary contributions to keep the mountain range that was providing them the water. That was voluntary. The last one to do that was the water company, because that was going to make it much more costly, and but it was important because society complained about that. Society demanded that. That was 20 years ago. Now the question is, basically the contribution was $50,000 a year, which was more or less half of the cost for environmental maintenance of the basin, fire control, improving siltation control work and all of that. And 25 years, it is exactly the same amount. What happened? Well, the people that were there at the beginning could no longer convince, and the population has doubled. It is not because of the population, no. And it takes me to the next point. Now, it is our responsibility. So one thing is water, value. Well, one thing is productivity, which we all highlight, and that has nothing to do with the true value of water. So when we develop these water evaluation mechanisms, how do we consider this? How should we include this? And that is the point I want to share as my thoughts based on my experiences in 2 or 3 basins. And perhaps we should all think about this. Thank you. Two more questions up here in the front. My question, which is also for the previous panel, is that, and it is very much aligned with what was said, once you realize there are different perceptions and notions and values, but if the power is distributed differently, well, once you understand this, there are mechanisms, are there mechanisms thought out to change status quo and the investment prioritization effort? I worked in Chancay, Lambayeque, and if water is transferred from upstream to produce rice in a desert, well, there is a historical situation there. How can you change that in the future to really overcome that situation? Thank you. Good morning. I would also like to thank the views shared by Cristal in the previous panel. In that sense, it is much clearer for us to what in Colombia we call a land planning around water, which is in line with what Cristal mentioned. Basically, this is not necessarily based on the paradigm, the positive, rational perspective, although there is a scientific perspective in the eyes of the peoples, in the eyes of our ancestors, and the care perspective that we are working on today. So there's a greater wealth in the way we analyze water issues. I must say that yesterday with Ilse and Cristal and the entire team, we met the drinking water regulatory agency of Colombia is very interested in participating in the water valuation network. And we may perhaps develop a first milestone of articulation in June to commemorate the 30 years of the Water Regulation Committee in a very complex territory for us, which is La Guajira, basically occupied by the nation that Margarita is from, the Guayú nation, and where there is historical water stress, but worsened by climate change. Everybody is invited to join us. And I would like to mention, or I just have a comment regarding the previous presentation. When we talk about the information system, hopefully we could have these new perspectives in building data. And I would see the importance that hopefully ECLAC could articulate so that this information system, or the ones presented as a very important system, so that we can have comparable, timely, quality information, and we can use this view instead of creating something new. Thank you. Before we go to the next question, I would like to share something with you. This is my personal feel. I was very happy to see you are inspired by this new perspective of water evaluation. I see there is support from all of you to move forward with this. As William Salas, this supplements all the governance and decision-making processes that are already occurring in the regions. And it is very important also what Monica mentioned. There are different powers that guide decision-making. So what we try to do in the program is to make it more explicit as to where those powers are. And then together with the actors in the basins, in the regions, we can see how we can match these values again. Because in the end, we all have the need, the urgency to fix it and have a good decision-making process. So we try to do this as best as possible. And we will continue to work with Colombia and other countries that are present here. 2 more questions and then we can continue. More than a question, I have a very kind request to all those people that are participating in the World Water Forum in Indonesia. It is very important for us to highlight this. We have been talking about over these last days about the importance of the local vision. We hear about general context, yes, but what happens, for example, in such a large country as Mexico is very different from what happens in a rural community or in a municipality or even in a state. So we could mention in those spaces that it is very important to have a local community vision focused obviously on women and youth also. Public policies should head from the bottom to top, not from top to bottom, as has been happening over the last years. Thank you. If there are no further questions, I would like to. Oh, okay, from the panel. Okay. I would just like to take advantage of the comments made. In the integration system, we do have formal processes. And regarding climate change, for example, agriculture and environment are at the top. The technical participants are people appointed by the ministries, decision makers. This is part of the model. And basically, on the table, we discuss country decisions and which sectors are involved in the process. That is our model. And we heard about the case of Colombia. So problems continue to be very much the same. We are betting now on approaching them differently to break away with those schemes that prevail in the territories. We are trying to work bottom up, but by the time it comes from the bottom and it reaches the secretariats up at the top, we are the ones that must ensure this reaches that the message reaches the ministers, particularly in the region, which I believe is very important. So we have been talking about SDGs here, but on our side, we are betting on 17, and that is the firmness that we cannot do things on our own. We need to work jointly. Agriculture is part of the solution, but we are not solely responsible for solving everything. So who are my partners in the territory, including the communities, obviously, because we will be working with them. I just wanted to share this because it is important for us to leave here with that new focus on how we will do it and that we only have part of the solution. We have to sit down with others that are part thereof to identify these gaps. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Lucrecia. You said something very important, is that on our own we cannot. We have to work together. And with this, I would also like to close this part of thoughts, connections, and synergies, because we in the panels have heard of how everyone is implementing water valuation in their regions through the different voices of women, youth, and First Nations. And we have heard about the complexity of water governance, the challenges we have, but also the water. Basically, we have to see how to make decisions and implement these decisions. Thank you for your dedication, your motivation. Thank you for working with your hearts open, listening to each other, because I believe this is the only way where we can truly bring together all the values, water values that exist in the world. I see Alba here. Okay, okay, I cannot deny you the possibility. No, it is very important because we are monitoring the questions online also. So we would like to share the a voice of people on the Zoom meeting. There are still 300 people connected, and we would like to read a question. I do not know if it is directly related to this initiative, but perhaps someone could respond. Álvaro Ponce is asking, how are you linking or relating to local or municipal governments to bring to ground SDG 6 so that local governments have greater strength for water management and micromanagement? Would someone like to answer what Alvaro Ponce has asked? Okay, fine. Ana Carolina, thank you. Hello. In Brazil, we have a program called Pro Management Program. This program is basically provides a series of resources to achieve a certain goals. There are management goals set out, and as the province or the state or the municipality or whatever meets the goals, then they receive the resources that must be mandatorily utilized for that management effort. So with this, this has been a quality quantum leap in local management. This is an incentive from the federal government for states to also implement best practices. The federal government has the money, the resources, so this is a way to share that knowledge and pass it on. This involves both technical goals as well as monitoring, the monitoring stations, the gauging stations in the territories, and training and the capacity building of people to work in local management. Thank you, very good. I see Alba. Are there more questions or was that it? Okay, thank you. Well, there are many more, yes. Then the questions continue to pop up online. Well, thank you, everyone, for being present here. I am very pleased to announce, as you well know, Margarita is here as a special guest. And together with Margarita, we will have a ritual to show the value of water. So, although we do not want to be influencers, we will have to follow her. I would like to invite her up on the stage. We will listen to her and we will follow her out into the yard or the garden, and we will follow the ritual out there.
para aquí todos presentes,
For this
es muy
ritual,
importante
it is
mencionar
very
que
important to
después del
mention
ritual,
that after the ritual, we will take a coffee break, believe it or not. It is not that I will share a ritual with you, but in Mamo, this activity of rituals is done by people that have received training ever from the womb and throughout their growth and development until the person becomes an adult. So what I will do is share the message of the Mamos through a thread. This thread connects, represents the connection we have with Mother Earth. So this thread we use after working as part of releasing all the negative feelings. When we disconnect from all that negative energy, and Mother will nurture us again with all the positive side. Indigenous women represent Earth, represent water, because there is a similarity between Earth and women, because the Earth is the one that nurtures us, and women bring us to life and help form us. So this thread was made by a woman and means that communication with the mother. This is like helping to reach a balance and establish harmony between nature and human beings. So this is, we can do away with the negative feelings and fill up with positive feelings. We have talked so much about water as such, but we're talking about the mother, because the mother is the one that is giving us the water. So for those that want to, for whoever wants one of these threads, let us form a circle on men on one side, women on the other, and we will give you a thread. Like the Mama voice in the Sierra Nevada. Through this thread, I will take you to Sierra Nevada in Colombia, where the Mamos are. And we have the different other groups in the area. So I invite you. As you can see, in northern Colombia, we have the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. The blue lines are the water basins. On the green part, in the center, are the snowy peaks and the highlands. And I come more or less from this part. But you can hear me? All right. That's my strength from the Sierra Nevada, the heart of the world. We call it the heart of the world because precisely this is where the snowy peaks are in the highlands, are near the ocean. There are 36 basins, water basins of importance that reach the swamps and the ocean, or the lowlands and the ocean. And on the way, it nurtures the different regions and 17 municipalities in 3 different departments. And I bring this on behalf of the Mamos. They were unable to come, but I am sharing this with you. So I invite you, when we go out later, to share this. Thank you, Margarita. We invite you then to go down. There will be a coffee break after that, and we will come back for the official closing ceremony. Thank you.
El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos. El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos. El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos. El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos. El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos. El agua es un elemento vital para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Por ello, la Comisión Económica para América Latina y el Caribe, CEPAL, promueve espacios de diálogo e intercambio en el marco de la Agenda de Acción Regional por el Agua, para promover una transición hídrica sostenible e inclusiva y en línea con los ejes prioritarios definidos por el Grupo de Coordinación Regional para América Latina y el Caribe para la participación en el 10º Foro Mundial del Agua. En este ámbito, la CEPAL organizará del 11 al 13 de marzo los Diálogos Regionales del Agua 2024, espacio de alto nivel ministerial con intercambios de experiencias técnicas con enfoque multiactor para promover buenas prácticas e impulsar el logro del ODS 6 en la región, que busca garantizar la disponibilidad de agua y su gestión sostenible y el saneamiento para todos.
Hola, ¿se me escucha bien? Ya. Vayamos sentándonos, que tenemos mucha prisa.
Okay, be seated because we are in a hurry as usual.
Nadie me pesca. Por favor, ¿pueden poner el
Please,
código QR?
Can we have the QR code?
Ya. Bueno, estimados,
Okay.
estimadas, llegamos a
Dears,
momento
this is
finalito de
the
que fueron
final moment of these pretty good 3 days, so to feel really happy.
Y antes de que nos
And
vayamos,
before leaving,
me gustaría
I would like to ask you to scan the QR code that you have on the screen. This is the most important one of all of them we show you before. This is the final survey, and that will help us to improve in this kind of events. Please scan, please, the online audience, could you scan it as well in order to answer the questions that are really useful for us to continue improving in this type of events? Thank you.
Ya.
Okay. Without further ado, because the bus will leave at 12, so we will call Mr. Fernando Schwanke, Project Director of AICA, for the final remarks. Okay, I will call Mrs. Silvia Saravia, Economic Affairs Officers in charge of water issues, ECLAC, and Mr. Lloyd Dale, Deputy Director on AICA.
Bueno,
Okay, so we are at the end. I believe it was absolutely amazing event. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for your presence in our house. I know Lloyd will thank you for that as well, but this is the House of America's Sustainable Agriculture. The ministers of agriculture of our continent meet here, and here they make very important decisions. One of these was to reference the agriculture initiative of AICA because of the importance for the countries. Thank you to each one of you. Thank you, ECLAC, for what we did since the beginning. Was the launch of the agriculture situation. We were always looking at the future. So because of the honor we have to receive this event at home. So thanks to the other partners for the initiative and for those who come from the University of Nebraska, IDB, CAF, World Bank, and others that come to work all together in this such an important topic for our continent, for the Caribbean. I have written some words, but I'm not going to read them. So when we started internally discussing the topic of water and agriculture, there was the Mester resolution saying this is the commitment of the primary sector of our countries, which is to help and to face the water crisis. And maybe only the primary sector countries may produce water through the forest recovery, the recovery of soils, and each organic matter that we put in the soils. We increase the natural storage of water, 160,000 liters of water per hectare. We have 270 millions of hectares to recover degraded soils. So everything we recover means more water stored in the soil. We have 20 million of forest to recover. When we will recover these 20 millions, we're going to have trillions of liters of water produced by the forest. We need to improve the efficiency in the use of water. I was looking here. They say, okay, agriculture consumes 70% of fresh water of the country. That's true. But the rice has 70% of water, banana has 71% of water, onion 90% of water, mango 82% of water, pineapple 87% of water. So we are putting water in the food we consume. So it is not says it produces 70, but 70 goes to the food we consume. So look at the responsibility we have in the agricultural sector with this topic of water. Water comes from populations, then sanitation. So there are many things that enter into the game. This is a beginning of a big journey that will take many years, but we as institutions responsible of this topic, and because of others, need to make things much better, things that we do to face this topic. So from the bottom of our heart, on behalf of our Director General, thank you very much for the event. Thank you for being in our house. And we're always going to be here open to this kind of discussions. Thank you very much. No, we have little time, but I was told that the bus can wait for 5 minutes. So I wanted to be here because I have notes. I don't want to miss anything. First of all, I want to thank the participants that have been online or in the room. Your participation, your commitment has made possible this fourth edition of the Regional Dialogues on Water. I know this has been 2 days and a half, quite intense, of sharing knowledge, experiences, but I believe that what we really like the most is that any participant talked about solutions, how they face a problem, how they solve it. So really thankful with ICA, great great co-organization. This joint work made it possible that through the different virtual channels in this wonderful room, we were people from more than 37 of the country, more than 37 countries of the region and the world. So people that are interested in water management from any point of view. So we want to thank Mr. Otero, the team, Mr. Lloyd. In ICLAC, we are deeply thankful, as well as to the regional group of experts in the water resource for the support for finding the right panelists for each panel. I'm not going to mention their names because you know them, but what I want to say is I'm going to mention the high authorities of governments that came to here from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Uruguay, Brazil, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, that took the time to share what they are doing, and they are there in the front line taking care of the water emergencies. They took time to be here with us to share their experiences, to listen other sectors interested in water. And an important message we want to give from ICLAC is that we are and we have to work united in public, private partnerships, civil society. Otherwise, we're not going to progress with water. Fernando perfectly summarizes the messages of Session 1, Water and Agriculture. But for us from ICLAC, we took actions for clear recommendations from each session. In Session 1, it is summarizing the 4 pillars of the initiative for water and agriculture. That we rescued the adoption of agricultural practices aimed to improve the efficiency of water use and to promote the regeneration of soil. These strategic alliances as well. From Session 2, how to work to design to make the electric matrix more water-friendly, more diverse, to promote the adaptation management of water. We saw the case of the Panama Canal is not a problem for Panama, it's a problem of all of us in the region and of world trade. We talked about the modernization of irrigation systems, technology adoption is to analyze, to update the regulations. Session 4, transboundary sessions. The region is becoming more and more aware about the importance of going together in managing 71% of transboundary waters in the region. And in that regard, we are convinced that the Water Convention is an efficient framework to progress in that way. Session 4 from ICLAC, I'm very happy to hear how these original processes are progressing. But remember, don't forget to send us your report, because we want to consolidate this final report in the most transparent and inclusive manner. Yesterday, the session of water and health, where we talk about hygiene, mental health, menstrual health, the stigma, the lack of attention to these topics in public policies. Session 6, she was Rosa for me, that was the best one. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because the 2 vice ministers that remain from this panel, it is not easy to come here to explain how we are facing a water crisis, the pressure, and this is the way we learn, and this is the way for us to support each other and find solutions. Thank you to the 2 vice ministers, Amarilla and Mateo. Session 7. This is the point where all of us are convinced that circular economy is a viable strategy at different scales. From ICLAC, for us, it is a pride to work with the Salvadoran Authority of Water, with the Municipality of Metapan, in order to try to have a concrete impact of a recommendation of public policy, is to find partners that want to make these projects a reality, considering the different barriers, financial, regulatory barriers that exist, but to prove that from bottom to top, we can create changes. And last session for today, all of us, I believe all of us will leave with a reminder about the importance of evaluate water, to consider that our vision is not the only one, to understand that we need to go together in this water management. Otherwise, any project may not succeed, will fail. Apologies for being so late, but there's going to be more things, more encounters. The World Forum of Water in Bali, but the United Nations in 2026 will have water conference following what we talked last year. These decisions of actions, these decisions on how we're going to progress to manage the water resource. Water is life in our region. These inputs will be consolidated on a report, and they will feed our own regional agenda of action for water. It is on a volunteer basis, but if we continue working this way, united in these spaces, it is difficult, it's hard, but we can if we do this together. And to do so, please, you can always count on ICLAC. We are available. We want to be a space where any stakeholder may feel included, supported, and to find solutions in conjunction. So to find this synergy to move on and to achieve the SDG 6 as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aika. Okay, thank you very much, Silvia. Your energy is contagious. Thanks, ICLAC, to honor us with your presence, to have this conference here with us. It has been an honor for us to receive you all as well. The whole world is here. Just this morning, I met your colleague from Finland that is here. This is far away from Latin America, but thank you very much for being here with us. Water is life. I come from the state of California, north of the United States, and I have most of my life I have experienced a huge drought in California. In California, people do not know that, but California is the most productive state in agriculture in the United States. And water is life for agriculture. And as Fernando said, and I want to say the same thing, that we consume all that, the production. So it is not just agriculture who is receiving this, it's us. Last month, this is March. Last month, I was in Uruguay, in Ecuador, and I was there with the ministers of the environment talking about oceans, and all the water that we use here goes to the sea, to the oceans, and they can continue to oceans. And the biodiversity right there as well. So I know you talked about that, but how we can take care of the planet is key. The way we take care of the planet is key. Any one of us, each one of us has a responsibility to use water on a more efficient manner, more carefully, thinking not only in us, in ourselves, but to think in the whole planet. I believe that these kind of meetings help us. We are completely devoted to work with you. Thanks for your support, Brad and Fernando, in our water project, because water is key for agriculture. We're going to continue working hard with your countries, and hopefully we can repeat this in some years here or in Santiago or elsewhere. So thank you very much. Have a safe trip back home. Thanks to those that are on the social media and online. Gift for those who are here. We have another lunch. It's going to be delicious. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Queríamos hacer un almuerzo, pero hay mucha
We want to offer lunch, but there are many people with a flight that leave at 12. So we're going to have lunch with this morning panelists for a closer with ICLAC and AICA people. So thanks, everybody. So I call the AICA team and the ICLAC team for the final picture of the event. Rafael will take the picture. AICA team, please. Andrew, Gabriela, AICA team, please. And Marcela, where are you? Marcela, please. Thank you.